Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cosmere Connections. We're a collective of book-loving nerds rereading Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere series. From book 1 to book 16 million, we'll be uncovering every secret connection there is to find. Today we are joined by Swiggity Swoo.
Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm just sitting here with my copy of Sayor's Political Myths.
John.
Damn those Elantrians. I had something better, but it's gone. It left my head.
Okay.
Idos Domai.
And I'm ReaderWarrior, but today we also have the amazing Joe and Justin of Cosmere Chronicles to join us.
Hey,
Hello.
everyone ready for a wedding?
And hello, I have nothing exciting prepared.
It's okay. It seemed like
do it.
most of us didn't. Mine sounded prepared, but I'm looking at my notes right now, and it was right there.
Ah, you cheater.
And today
That's how I usually do it,
we're
too,
going to be
if
covering.
I have one.
And today we're going to be covering Elantris Part 2, Call of Elantris, chapters 38 to 43. And we're going to jump right in. I've got 48, so we're just going to start from the beginning. Quite a lot of jumps this chapter. Since Harathan's return and the miraculous healing of his body, he had moved his sermons away from the Dorethi chapel and over to one of the walls. He seemed more excited now, Serena noted, but she was certain it must have been some form of trick. She didn't know how he did it, and neither did Lukeller Shuden. They all realized that if they didn't stop Harathan's popularity, a Dorethi sympathizer may end up on the throne, and then everyone will lose.
Dun dun dun.
That's funny. That's literally how I ended my notes for chapter 42.
You wrote out dun dun dun.
I did. I don't know. Maybe you can see
For
That's
the
the same
audio
here.
listeners, he's showing us his notes now, and it's there.
it. It is there. With
It is
6 exclamation points.
I bet Brandon's got a few of those in his manuscripts.
Maybe. Probably.
quite
No,
possible.
wait. Certainly. He's
Yeah,
written
his
like
editor's
12
always
million words.
removing them.
His editor's like, Brandon, we're gonna let one of these in one of these days, but not this one, not today.
But that day is not today.
Nope. Okay. Upon a ship marked with Aeon Teo, Majesty, the patriarch of the Shu-Korath religion, Cyanalon, has arrived.
He's
How is
so
it pronounced in-
pompous.
Yeah.
Pump
How
his
is it
riches.
pronounced in
man.
the audio versions?
How's his voice?
Salen, I think is how it's pronounced in the audiobook. I think
Yes.
it's yeah. Salen is the audiobook, but I don't know how they do it in the graphic audio. Is that how they do it in the graphic
I think so. I don't remember exactly. He's not the most important character ever.
Yeah.
But looking at the spelling, I don't
Great.
see how you could really change it.
Whole book, one of my favorite characters, that guy. He's just so, like you said, so pompous, so better than everybody. Oh, yeah.
Whenever I had to
Who's
say his
tall?
name, I always had trouble with his name.
Yeah, it's like
Is
30 letters just thrown together randomly, it feels like.
For real.
He was tall with golden hair and a holier-than-thou attitude. Sereni greets
Dorethi
him.
Fabio.
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
No. He's not Dorethi. He's Karathi.
Korath.
Or, I'm sorry,
Correct.
Karathi Fabio.
How could you? How dare you? He is the patriarch
many-
of the Karathi religion. He is the head.
He's the Pope.
I mean,
He is the Pope.
the Pope of Elantris.
Yep.
We got there. We got there in the end, everybody. We did it.
Okay. Do not misspeak is what I'm hearing here. I'll get chewed out.
just the ones who know what they're talking about will get
That's
screwed
right.
out.
You better pronounce
Okay, so I'm
Sailinen
good, I'm good.
correct every time.
Serini greets him along with Lukel, Shuden, and Eondel. Sienna-Len is disappointed that no one of a higher status came to greet him, but allows them to take him to his lodgings.
Which, like, higher
End
status? Right now, there's no one higher status than the princess. Like, my dude, what? Like, the king is literally
Well, they're
dead.
just like,
Like, she is literally one of the most important people in Arendelle.
Well,
Right.
there's
Maybe
the
the
royal widow.
Yeah, like, that's the... So she is the second most
oh
important
shoot, does she have to
person.
do a widow's trial?
Probably.
Oh, wow.
I didn't even think about that. Okay.
But she is...
I think what the only
Viewpoint cut.
I do have something to say about Sailinen. Sailin? You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Pompous riches with the nice
Yeah.
hair. So what I think L'Oreal represents here is just another side of religion. Like, this whole book has been about the different ideologies of religion and how they're playing off of each other, and positive and negatives. And Sailin, and I'm never gonna get it right.
You could just call him L'Oreal.
You did. You just got it right.
He's like that kind of, you know, the holier than thou folly of religion, right? Like, where Hrathen is like the manipulative side and Delof is the angry further, and Raoden is like embodying the values. Like, this guy represents that, like, pompous, like, making the people feel small, like, kind of the, you know, golden plated way of manipulating people. So
Yeah,
I
like,
wanted to just call
the
it that.
side of, like, because I am a high person in this, I am important. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like saying, like, since a person is like this level of faith, like they are better in some regard.
Yeah.
It's
Clearly
just
not somebody who
another.
looks highly on the people around him.
Mm-hmm. And in a sense, that's what he's supposed to be. Like, they hired him because he looks like a god, not, you know, he looks like the guy.
Lukel confesses that Sereni's less than kindly description of Sienna-Len was spot on. Serena explains that when Wolfden became Wyrn, the leaders of Shu Korath wanted someone of equal age, if not younger. Eondel is disturbed by the way they refer to the holy man and is grateful when they stop.
Eondel's so religious. Yeah.
I have to
Anytime-
wonder. So,
Anytime anyone is like
Sorry.
very like does anything that's like slightly like not super karate, like talking bad about the patriarch, like anything like that, he's like, please, like, stop. He's like, you're gonna
You young
burn."
whippersnappers have no respect for religion.
Yep.
I can almost hear my dad, like, anytime, if I were to disrespect or comment upon that, he's like, no, don't. But I do have to wonder, how does, like, the patriarch come to exist? Because it seems to imply, like, a group of people elected him to be patriarch.
Well, yeah,
At the
I
same
assume
I just
time-
figured it's like Pope.
yeah, I would say similar
You just
to
have a
the
bunch
Pope.
of cardinals.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking, but, like, it seemed to imply that, like, Wolfden became it, and, like, Shu Korath immediately appointed somebody to match that. So I wonder if they were also lacking a spiritual leader at that time. Did they have the previous one step down?
Maybe.
Did the last one die?
Yeah, I think
Never really said anything.
I feel like they said that when the previous one passed away, they wanted to get one to rival Wern.
They didn't say passed away. They just said when the Wern became it, they wanted somebody who could. The leaders of Shu-Korath elected him.
I guess I always just figured that their leader was old, died, and then they just went with the young, hot one.
It's funny to extrapolate what might happen if Fjeldel kind of took that same route. Oh, well, now we got to get an even hotter, younger Wern. And then, flash forward 100 years, just...
Okay, who's ready for a wedding? Although Royale has elected himself funeral manager, Father Omen has declared that the service be held in the throne room. It had been decorated for the funeral as well as the upcoming wedding. Sereni kept an eye on Duke Telrai and expected him to try something, but the man was more uncaring than anything. During the funeral, Royale speaks of the good that Iadin has done and asks that the people remember that, as Domi will see to his soul. Domai. Before they could lay him to rest, however, Sienalon steps forward to reveal Iadin's will that was written 10 years ago and kept with the Patriarch for safekeeping. It states that rank and titles are to be frozen to their current owners and shall pass on from father to son. There's also a list of laws enclosed to become their new constitution. Strangely, this solidifies Royale's claim to the throne, but Sereni is still worried about Telrai. A short while later, Iadin is buried, and Sereni is to be wed.
It was smart of Iadon to make that declaration before, like, when he first became king. He had to have known that the system he was putting in place wouldn't last.
Oh, for sure. And I think this is just further evidence that he really actually did care about the kingdom, because he said, if I die, or if it's been X amount of time, like he saw that, he might not make it, and he put the kingdom first over, his own ambition. Of course, he probably assumed that Raoden would have been there to take his place if he did die, but,
Yeah, there's nothing in it about his son, so nice will and testament, old man. But I always assumed it was more like, I'm going to make this so it locks down, but I have 10 years to solidify power and wealth and just make it so that at the end of 10 years, I am the king forever.
Yeah, he could also just be solidifying his legacy throughout all time, so that, like, to keep that stability after he dies inevitably in the future, so people will still remember back on him as a great founding king and not have, like, 5 different revolutions between his death and after, like you would expect.
Right.
It's difficult for me to think of him as a good man with what he's done. It's just hard. or
he's not good.
A good leader, that's what I mean to say.
And he's certainly not a good leader, but he was trying and he cared is more the point.
At least 10 years ago.
Right.
Oh yeah, he could have had a different philosophy back then, and he's fallen completely between then and now.
Right. And well, even the other the dukes and counts of Sereni's crew, whose names are all one jumbled mess, one of them says he was my friend once. He was an honorable man once. He's fallen, so he did care. He's just not his usual self.
All that weird
that
cult
was Royal.
stuff.
Yeah, that was Royal.
Okay.
I feel like with him giving them like the 10-year thing, he also makes sure that he has the smartest people as all the dukes and people in charge.
Or at least the most cutthroat.
Smartest, just the most
smartest by his belief. Yeah, I think he's the kind of person who would think the richest are going to be the smartest.
The
then of course,
savviest.
Yeah, savviest. There you go.
This coming right now just makes me think of Eden, who ran away. If he just waited a few more weeks, his whole problems would have gone away and he would have been set.
I know, yeah.
Right?
Yes.
That's why he's the funniest character in the book. It's got to be hilarious to reread it too, and be like, "Dude, bro, what are you doing? Don't do that."
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. I had
Now
actually
it's time for the
forgotten.
wedding.
I had actually forgotten that he had made this, that this was part of this, like the declaration about the titles not
The
changing.
titles.
So like I didn't even think about that when we were reading it and looking at Edon and like how stupid it is that he decided to run away. Like
Hindsight is 2020.
yep.
Okay.
If this hadn't happened, what would happen differently if this hadn't been in place? Like, do you guys grasp that? Because I had a hard time thinking like what this really changed.
Well, so
Sereni's plan would still be going forward.
but
It's just
Telri would have had a stronger claim to the throne.
Because it would have still been the money-based system, and okay, so it actually kind of helps them out.
Yes, it helps them out considerably because of the fact that Sereni is, because she's a princess of Erelon, so she gets to retain that title, which she was not going to be able to retain that title once
What's the
Telri took, well no, once Telri took the throne as the king, she would no longer be the princess of Erelon.
Right.
So, but with this, she gets to retain her title, even if someone else takes the throne. She still will remain the princess. That makes sense, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's how I read it as.
It helps them now, but then hurts them later after the wedding. Because right now, her and Royal together, they would claim their stake. With everything that happens in the wedding, then Telri takes it because he has more money. Now he's set because of the rules. You can't just make more money than him and get over him.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So he's sneaking this in to seem like it's strengthening their title, but it's actually a plot point for later. That's interesting.
Yep. Good on Brandon. Trading in her black clothes for white, Sereni kneels in front of the Karathi altar and prays, one of thanks and one of a request. She then walks to the palace and her attendants open the doors. Everyone was there, most importantly Royale and Father Omen. But so was Harethan. Sereni lifts off her veil, and then somebody screams. Her hair was torn away with the veil, and black splotches now cover her body, which had been unseen due to her conservative dress. Without warning, the Sheod had taken her. Gasp!
It's just fully what I expected to happen, I remember.
Oh yeah, you guessed that would happen? That was what was about to happen?
Well, I always thought that his way back when they were doing the potion, I always figured it was a fake Sheod.
Yeah, she's having a bad luck with weddings, though.
Yeah.
Poor Sereni.
She's trying so hard to get married, and the universe just isn't letting her.
You say poor Sereni, but do you think that this is how she would have wanted things to go going forward?
No, it ends up being way better.
Yeah.
Like,
Which
this
I love.
is luck in the form of unluck right here.
Yeah.
True.
But she is trying so hard to get married, and she just keeps missing.
But in that moment,
after L.
she must have been pissed.
3 engagements now.
Yep.
Yes.
3 engagements. Zero. Well, 1 marriage, but that barely counts because she wasn't technically there when they got married.
Yep. Anything else for chapter 38?
No.
Okay. Just Justin, I believe you have what has to be the longest chapter in the book.
Yep, and I've got a very detailed synopsis of it here that I'm sure will get us all engaged in deep conversation.
All right, we'll try to keep it under 10 minutes, okay? Like, we got a lot to
We'll
get through.
try. We'll try. And we'll try to make it more than 1 minute. We'll see if that's possible, too.
Be surprised.
So, chapter 39. Hrathen is watching priests lead Serene away. Many of her friends are distraught. Hrathen is surprised he takes no joy from this victory, and he's confused that he is bothered no one gave a crap when the show seemingly took him. The plan to put Royal on the throne has been thwarted. He leaves to get to work with the knowledge that his conquest of Erlen is close to complete, while Telri gives him a little wink from the audience.
I do like how in this, Hrathen's plan was almost thwarted by, like, Serene and Royal were almost fast enough to prevent this from happening. Like, because if their wedding, if either the potion had taken longer to take effect, or if Serene and Royale had gotten married just like a little bit earlier in the day, like, that would have been it for Hrathen's plan to get Telri on the throne.
I almost have to imagine like the visual movie format. Like she's at the altar, she's praying, then she puts the veil on, and then like it cuts to like a bunch of shots jumping between like her walking from wherever that is to the church to like the people at the church, and then like the doors open, then she lifts the veil, and then it's just the zombie form.
Be a very
whatever
dramatic
time
scene
frame.
for sure.
I think with the show, it'd be cooler if you see the veil and the hair fall off before you see the face.
That would be like it's a back shot, she lifts it off and like pulls it to the side, and suddenly
Then the
all
crowd
of her
just
hair
goes,
goes with it.
Yeah,
Then
you
we'll
just
cut
hear
to
the
commercial.
gasp.
It cuts to commercial, and it's L'Oreal from before. It's perfect timing.
Yeah, because didn't he like faint or something like that?
He's like, Shukora.
Nah, I don't think he fainted. I don't think anyone
Or-
fainted.
In that description, Andel was weeping. Jindo wanted to go beat up the guys taking him, and Royal was hands between his head. That's all they described in there for the one I have.
All right. Yeah, never mind. No, Cyanalon was just outraged.
Yeah.
And Omen clutched his pendant.
Yep. My only question for this chapter is they keep referring to like the. Well, first of all, he refers to the money thing and how now they're never gonna make enough to match Telrai. But also Hrathen's like, and the death clause isn't gonna thing. I checked the contract. Are these things like publicly like hammered to like a sign outside like the?
I assume
main,
it's public access. So like when someone gets engaged, like they have to form a marriage contract that others can then access, if they so choose to. I think once Hrathen heard that Serene and Royale were engaged, he immediately went to go look at the marriage contract.
And
To
even if
see
he
what it
can't, I'm
said.
sure. Even if he can't, I'm sure somebody like Telri could easily get access to it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would assume
that's
it's
all I
something
got.
like going to like a court office or something and being like, hey, like,
Yeah, this is a merchant
like-
kingdom. I'm sure there's like the most straightforward bureaucracy you could ever find for records and stuff.
yeah.
True. Anything else for chapter 39?
No.
Okay. John, I believe you have chapter 40.
Yeah, the comeback of everybody's favorite secondary character. So, chapter 40, we have Raodon and Galadon looking for a way to climb up to the top of the walls. Raoden has wanted to do this since the guards disappeared, but he worries about why the guards are gone. And his first worry is that Wern has finally launched his attack on Aerolon, and he also worries about people using the height advantage to see inside and spot New Elantris. He's not very keen on having that happen. The two spot a tower that might have a stairwell inside, but it will have to wait as a messenger comes to tell them that there is a newcomer to Elantris. And here he is, Dash. He even has lines. He warns the two that it is a very feisty woman. When Raoden goes to meet her and he sees that it is Sereni, his wife, Raoden offers to show her around, but Sereni doesn't trust him. She goes with him anyway, though, because, you know, what else is she gonna do? Giving the lie to her words, just a bit.
Sorry to note, but
And-
to interrupt you, but I do want to say I love it. Like when Raoden sees Serene, he almost like gets knocked off his feet. Like he's like, what? Just that visual of him like getting like so taken aback that he loses his balance. Like,
It's a dangerous
Like you could
thing
literally
to do
see
as
him
an
do a double take.
Elantris.
yeah.
They comment how like Sereni fought a lot against like the door, longer than most Elantrians do. If Sereni actually did get taken and did get turned into a real Elantrian, would she have stayed at the door and done it as much as she did?
I think she would have gotten tired sooner. And I think her banging against the door would have hurt her hands more.
Probably, yeah.
Well, she's got
I'm
more
just-
reason to not want to be in there than other people too, because she's taken it upon herself to save this whole kingdom, right? So I feel like a lot of people who get let in there are just like, oh god, whatever, and just give up completely.
True, and I mean, she knows the full fallout of what has happened now that she's been cast in before the marriage.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just keeping a mental note of all the ways that Sereni should be a real Elantrian, but isn't. Also, when he holds out his hand, he's like, "Let me show you the world." I'm like, "This is Aladdin now, isn't it?"
I can show you the world.
Joe, didn't she to make that same comment? I think. Oh god, she
She
sang a
no,
song.
she did. Yeah, she sang an actual
Oh
song.
god, I
Oh,
forgot.
jeez.
Oh no.
Like the song?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
like
remember how it went.
Wretched.
Yeah,
Yeah, basically.
she was singing a song with when Raoden was showing Sereni New Elantris.
Oh,
Changed
God.
some
You
lyrics
see all
around.
these rotted corpse people like falling apart everywhere.
Oh boy. Yep,
But yeah,
that's all I got.
Dash.
Dash is
Dash
showing
Dash
back.
Came back.
So every time,
Man,
so
boy, were you
earlier-
wrong.
boy,
So
were
wrong.
wrong. So earlier, when he first showed up, we were like, "Oh yeah, here's this character that we're never gonna see again." We've seen him like
Yeah.
3 or 4 times since then.
Yeah.
He's in
I
like
also
every
sense.
chapter.
Yeah, I remember when I was listening to that episode of the podcast, you say that, and I'm just there like, he shows up a bunch more.
Yeah,
Those are always the best
I guess I
characters
should have paid
who,
a little
like,
more
you barely
attention.
remember. Yeah.
That happens a
Those
lot in this
characters you barely
podcast.
notice, they don't say anything, and yet you get a weird attachment to them on the side for the whole thing.
Yep.
I feel like Brandon just
Look at
sprinkled
you,
him in and
Galadon.
like every here and there just to spite me.
Just despite you
That's it.
specifically, John.
Right? He's like, in 15 years, this one dude.
Yeah, but then
gonna say
sometimes
something dumb,
like,
and boy, I'll show him.
but that's the thing is, yeah, in like 15 years, that one dude becomes a Super Saiyan, and you're like, why is Billy Bob from like 10 years ago a Super Saiyan now?
Also, you're saying 15 years? It's been like
10,
20.
20.
Stop.
It came out in 2003.
Ugh, my back. Where's
2000
my cane?
5.
Yeah.
2005? Okay, almost.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
fine.
It's like,
I know I'm the old man of the group, but
Um,
jeez.
You bought the book the day it came out? Is that it?
No, I wish I had.
No, I'm the one who's been reading Sanderson the longest.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Elantris preview chapters.
Oh god.
No, but I did stand in line to get Way of Kings when it first came out.
That's pretty cool.
And I was reading because I started with the Alcatraz books, which I greatly enjoy. But yeah.
Now, years later, we're all going to go stand in line for book 5.
Am I correct in assuming that I'm the one who's been reading the shortest then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably.
Okay.
Less than a year.
Less than a year. Sounds good.
Well, welcome to the party.
Yeah. Welcome.
Glad to have you.
It's been a weird party so far,
to the
that's
party.
for sure.
Oh, trust me, you ain't seen nothing yet.
I get that feeling, yeah.
They knew nothing. They didn't even know when they finished Elantris that the next book was going to be a different planet. They thought it was going to be the same planet, same characters.
Wow.
That's awesome.
I mean, eventually, but
Yeah.
Eventually they'll write
Hopefully.
another Elantris book.
Okay.
The Cope
Joe,
of
I believe you
Elantris.
called this chapter out specifically when I messaged you.
Yep. Because Sereni's my favorite character in the book, and the Reread and Sereni relationships, one of my top 3 romances in Cosmere.
Love their relationship. It's great.
Alright, so let's go. Alright, so Sereni's stupefied when she enters New Elantris and sees how clean it is. She sees the people wearing bright-colored clothes and realizes that it is all the fabric she had given them. What she had seen as offensive when she chose it, they wear with joy. Then Mary takes Sereni into a building, gives her some clothes. As Sereni is looking at herself in a mirror, she asks where they found it. Mary says it isn't a mirror. It is a flat piece of stone with thin sheets of steel. Sereni realizes it is the thin sheets that she gave them. And Sereni leaves, and Spirit shows her around. She sees how the people love Spirit. She has never seen that with the leader before. They walk by a man that is carving a stone horse and gives it to a girl. He grabs another stone and begins carving again, and Sereni realizes that he's using one of her bent nails to make it. Sereni asks who the man is, and, Spirit tells her that it is Taeon, but he had used to be the gang leader Aeondon. Then Sereni apologizes and said she gave them nails because she was afraid that they would make weapons. But Spirit tells her that she was right to be wary, and that he did betray her in the end. She says he must have had a good reason. He says that he did, but he is still a tyrant. But Sereni says that he isn't. There cannot be tyranny where there is love. Sereni figures that Spirit must be a nobleman and asks who he was. He tells her that he was the second son of the Lord of the Ayin plantation. Sereni figures it could be a truth or a lie, but she didn't bother memorizing the names of minor lords. And then Spirit begins glowing and he collapses. Sereni holds him as he spasms. Something large and possibly immense pressed against her. She could no longer see him because there was too much light coming from his body. Then he went limp and screamed a defiant yell. Sereni asks if she should go get help, but he tells her no. This is becoming a common occurrence for him because the door is intent on destroying him. She questions this, and he says it is because of Aeondor. But Sereni doesn't believe in Aeondor, and that they had been taught the last 10 years that the Elantris magics had mostly been a sham. And then Spirit draws an Aeon in the air. Sereni faced the possibility the stories were true and asked Spirit to teach her. Alright, and then we jump to later in the day. At night, Sereni finally has time to cry. She thinks of how she will never see her family again, about how she has failed, and that Ash is now likely dead. But then Ash shows up to her surprise. They figure it must be a miracle that he did not go insane.
I did want to say, I guess before we get too far from it, one of my favorite scenes in this book so far is when Sereni's going through and seeing the way they've reconfigured her gifts to be useful. And just so much enjoyment in that, and like the aspect of seeing, a little bit of satisfaction in like, hey, you're trying to screw these people over, but look what they did with it. And then also like her realizing, oh my gosh, they could have really used that stuff. And then it was justifying what you were saying, Reader, of like, she should have just asked them. Like, she had this impression of them as a gang or whatever, but it was still so cruel. And I don't know, even like seeing all the examples, like the rotting fish, like that was awesome. They actually went through with the rotting fish plan.
Sorry.
That's okay.
And I love that there was a sort of balance between it, and how like, oh, sometimes she got the best of us with the broken nails, but sometimes we get the best of her by asking for fish, and she sent us exactly what we wanted.
Yeah.
And then
when they start getting to predict what her trolling is going to be.
Uh-huh.
She's lucky that they were able to utilize a lot of this stuff. If she came in and they're like, yeah, we couldn't use any of this stuff and it's all your fault, she would have felt so bad here.
Even as it is, she feels really bad about it. Because she's like, I was doing this because she didn't like grasp exactly what was going on. So
if Joe Abercrombie wrote this book, that's what would have happened. She would have came in there, and then piece by piece, everything she needed, she would have like self-defeated herself in the past. And then she stepped on the broken nails, and there was no food, and Shayor's men were still around, and like,
oh god.
Okay. I love the fact, like, oh, we weren't taught that in chapel school. And I'm like, you have Sunday school on this planet? Gosh darn it.
I'd imagine they have a lot of it in some areas of the world. Like,
yeah.
Every Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Sunday. Cool.
Well, Serini seems fairly religious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would it really be Sunday school? Because she would have started going there when she was 15, if it was 10 years ago. Learning about the magics.
For me, specifically, there's the free Sunday school, which is basically a parent's wanting their child to do it. And so that can be anywhere from being like a child to a teenager. And then there's confirmation classes, and that's the teenager years. And then that's pretty much the last thing of Sunday school.
It also might have been that they were taught in Teod that the Aeroline magics weren't really real before the Reread happened. They might have still been taught that before the Reread happened. Or they weren't as, like, impressive as people said that they were. Like, they weren't as useful as, like, people said that they were.
Possibly.
Yeah, but they could have known, like, some of them could have had relatives, because people from Teod, if they went to Erland, could have become Elantrians. So some people there would still have a connection.
True. But also, once people became Elantrians, they didn't leave Elantris, so they wouldn't really have any reason to go back. They wouldn't go back to Teod, really.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Serenity's smart enough to like, man, all this, you must be a noble, and you must have gone to some church services, but she can't recognize her own fiancé/ex-husband.
He's a rotted corpse.
Also, to be fair, she also never in person.
Yeah, I always imagine their little hollow technology is kind of all staticked out if they see each other even a little bit.
Or like in Star Wars where it's all blue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but like when it is a bad connection and it's wavy.
Yeah.
It's just I'm whatever colored ashes.
I'm envisioning sort of like the Jim Carrey version of the Christmas Story, and how like the Ghost of the Past has like a face made out of flame.
Well, then it'd be even harder to recognize.
Yeah.
Face out of flame.
Yeah.
to a rotted zombie face.
I think what we
Also,
need to
like,
do, when we go to
remember-
Dragonsteel, one of us dresses up as Raoden. And then, since we've never met in person, if you guys recognize me or not, then
There you go. There you go. Get
You
some
know,
Hollywood professional prosthetics done and everything.
let's myth bust
Literally
this.
shave it
The
all
Walking
off.
Dead.
Yeah, yeah.
Also,
Some
I do want to point out the fact that none of Raoden's friends recognized him. His friends that he saw probably like, if not every day, at least like every other day. Like he saw them like consistently over many years. Like, and they didn't recognize him as an Elantrian. So like, how
But
would
also-
Sereni, who hasn't ever met him in person, recognize him?
I'm imagining that Sereni actually paid attention to Spirit and actually looked at him while the others were kind of just, that's an Elantrian, give box, move on to the next one.
Give
I
box leave
personally
Raoden.
wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to look at an Elantrian. No offense. I would avert my eyes a bit.
And Raoden purposely tried to stay away from his friends because he thought there was a chance they could have recognized him.
Mm-hmm.
That is true.
And even Raoden, he barely recognized himself when he saw himself for the first time in the marble. Alright, so Ash tells Sereni that Telri plans to wait a few days to consolidate power before taking the throne. Then Eventio contacts Sereni through Ash and says that he will bring her home. Soon Erlon will fall to Fjorden and Teod will be alone with no allies. She declines, and then after an argument, Eventio finally accepts this. He says that he will set Teod's army in a defensive pattern, so she needs to let her friends know that any ship approaching Teod waters will be sunk without question.
There are 3 details I really liked from this jump. The first is that, like, Raoden finally has, like, somebody to teach Aeons to that would actually want to learn. Because, like, he's been trying to tell, like, Galadon and
Karada.
Karada, thank you. Like, you need to know this, I need to teach you. And they're like, nah, it's fine. But now he has somebody who would actually be interested. Second is the other Lanterns are just, like, laying in their cots while Sereni's, like, freezing. Because she's not really a Lantrian.
Mm-hmm. There's so many clues
And the
to that
third
as you go
is
through. I think
Oh, yeah.
Raoden even thinks, like, I should have picked up on that. I was so distracted.
He just didn't want her to
Third
leave.
is, I love the quote, love is independent of time. If Erlon is to fall, I must fall with it.
Yeah, this was a good chapter. I really, really like this chapter.
It is fun watching them be all Twitter-pated with one another.
Right. And
I
the
feel like you get a whole different side of both characters in here because so far things have been kind of stable for them. Now this is a huge left turn for both of them.
Yeah.
And they
we're
get all
starting-
melty and gushy.
They do.
I also like the part where Raoden just collapses and starts glowing because Sereni has no idea what the hell's going on.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah.
She's just coming in, talking to him, then he just collapses and is glowing, and she's never seen anything like that.
And she reacts to
And
it
then-
pretty well, actually. She takes it in
She's like,
stride.
is that going to happen to all of us? He's like, no, just me. The door just wants to kill me. And she's like, what the fudge are you talking about?
It's like the door just hates me. It's fine. Everything's fine.
and she's like, why is he talking about an outdated god from like
Yeah, she's
3
like,
religions
why are you talking
ago?
about a pagan god?
Even the visuals of it too.
Anything else?
Like just imagining coming through the blackened, disturbing, crusted over Elantris into like I'm imagining them going through a beautiful archway into like the pristine white, almost glowing city where everyone's wearing like bright, colorful clothes, and there's like
I
fields.
don't imagine this is the first time we're seeing New Elantris. Like, everything, like, they hinted at it, but, like, after Sereni left, like, we only really had, like, Raoden outside, like, in the book chamber and other things. So this is, like, the first time we're seeing New Elantris. And it's through
Yeah.
Sereni's eyes.
Yeah, it's through a newcomer's eyes, which I think is pretty cool that we're seeing it. through a new perspective as opposed to just continuing to see it through Raoden.
And it's
we've
bigger.
seen, like, it has changed a lot since the last time that we saw New Elantris. Like, there's a lot more people in it. There's a lot more spaces that they have that are cleaned. Like, people are happy and, like, doing work and, like, running around, like, having a good time and enjoying life.
You're right about
Which is
the new perspective thing. Like, that is always so satisfying in fantasy books when you have a character just being like, wait, you're telling me you killed the God King Emperor with your bare knuckles? You know, like, when you have somebody seeing our character's work, like the end result of it, that is always like super satisfying. She'd be like, yeah.
Yeah, because when you're following the protagonist, it just all makes sense. But if you step out from over it, you're like, this has been nonsense the whole time.
Yeah. It's always one of my most aggravating, like, cliches, and, like, when, like, a judicial party has to come in or somebody has to come in, they're like, this is what happened. They're like, that's utterly ridiculous. How am I supposed to believe that all of that happened? I don't believe you. Something else makes a lot more sense.
It's the why is it always you three in Harry Potter?
Exactly.
okay. So 42. Is that where we are? Right?
Yes.
Okay. So this is Harathan chapter, which I think this is my first Harathan chapter that I've done this book.
Oh, hooray!
Hooray!
So, Harathan, he's got it. He's got it down. He's got everything ready. He's like, I am in control. He's got everything back together. He's got his faith. He's got Dilaf in line. He's got the church under control. All of the everything is just falling into place for him now.
Rathan felt good.
He felt good. You know, Telri's about to take the throne. He's got like, I think like 2/3 of the Aeroline nobility have either sworn openly to Rethi or are Dorethi supporters, sympathizers. And yeah, he feels good, and he's still got 6 weeks left until his deadline. He's like, I am solid. I'm feeling great. And he does talk to Dilaf and about the Elantrians, because Dilaf still wants to destroy all of the Elantrians. And he's like, Elantrians are still unholy, but we're not going to focus our efforts on them right now because it's not necessary. We don't need to do that. We were like, Elantris isn't going to go free, but we're not going to deal with it until Erelon is firmly in our grasp. Erelon is our main focus. Elantris is secondary.
So the antagonist of this book is saying there's no need to hate on a specific group of people just because you can?
Yeah. And he's
a bad guy,
like,
but he's not the bad guy.
He's a bad guy, but he's not a bad guy.
That's what makes him
Thanks,
so
Satan.
interesting in this book. I like him so much because he's completely at odds with your protagonist and everything that's like you as a reader probably think is good. But you completely understand why he thinks this is the right thing to do and there's no other choice. Compared to Dilaf on the side there, who's acting more like a traditional villain would, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and from the get-go, Rathan has always been trying to avoid a slaughter. Just doing so from his own team's perspective.
And I always feel like the writing style with Rathan, it just kind of, it starts off with him not being as bad, and you're like, oh, he's kind of a good guy. He has plans. Then when everything starts falling down for him, it almost feels like this could be the part where he just takes the villain turn. But then, and it just keeps switching. So you think it might go one way, you think it might go another. This makes it pretty interesting compared to other stories with a similar thing where someone starts off good, then just breaks bad.
And joining us now from the Aether, we have Dragon.
So we just finished 42. We were talking about how Hrathen is still a really interesting character because he's so morally kind of ambiguous.
Nice. Yeah, I love it. I love Hrathen's chapters. It's a, kind of like what was talked about last time. It's just like the logic, and then like he then mixes in the way starts, in these chapters he starts mixing in like kind of more of like a real true faith. It just kind of gives him this interesting dynamic as he kind of pushes forward, but still very committed to
Dorethi.
going again, but it is against going, still on his drive, right? He's even more faithful, even stronger in his faith in Yadith, and but I do also like that he's just like, but at the same time, like, we don't need the hate for Elantrians anymore. Like, it was a tool, like the hatred, the vitriol, like just like the vengeance, and he's like, to him it was just all a tool. And so the fact that he's like, though he still has this drive to convert everyone, but he's always harbored this, like, he doesn't have any need to, to need to kill, and if he can, he wants to remove that out of the equation. Unlike Dilof, who's just like, but they still gotta fall. So
once you start putting that in the equation, somebody who's super logical like him would think, oh, we can just pivot away from that. But people get emotionally invested in their hatred for other people's. He's so smart, and yet he's so not smart at how people work at the same time. It's fascinating.
I do love the Hrathen blunder, the Hrathen blunder plotline. It seems to happen more than once. He continuously gets outsmarted by Sereni and Dilof, and he's such a self-serious guy that always makes me smile.
Yeah, getting outsmarted by Dilof, my God, that can't feel good for him at that point. Oh,
it's
man.
Well, I'm sure it felt terrible, but it's part of the reason why. But now now he feels like he's back in the superiority aspect because he's like, well, my plan's worked out and stuff like that. So it's interesting because he's so logically based, but he has no read on other people, like, because he doesn't, like, he sees like the greed, he sees like the calculating piece of like, oh, he's gonna try to take stuff, but again, he totally misses driving emotions, even though he's starting to get back his own faith, his own driving emotion, right? Because he has like that moment in one of the previous chapters, like looking at the moon and being like, I see how people could worship the moon. I'm seeing like now myself worshiping, Yadith in a true way again. He's starting to see that, but he's so detached himself from emotion for so long, he can no longer see it really in others besides the ones that he knows how to manipulate. So
emotions that make sense he can read, but ones that are just out of like crazed passions or desperation he seems to have trouble with.
Hey, you want to finish the chapter?
Oh, he realizes that he's like, I've been able to convert. He's very happy because he's like, I've been able to convert this country without a bloody revolution. Like, I could do it. I did it. And now he has his sights set on his next target, which is Teode.
Dun dun dun!
Dun dun dun!
Sereni's hometown.
Yep.
I heard it's nice this time of year. So, chapter 43?
Sure.
Okay.
43.
Radon and Galadin climb a claustrophobic staircase in the wall of Elantris all the way to the parapet at the top. Raiden feels overjoyed to see Kai on his own terms again. Galadon gives him crap for being wrapped around Sereni's finger, but the spirit doesn't seem to let it bother him. They see Telri's mansion is being guarded by the Elantrian wall guard, and they go to seek out Sereni to ask about what this political situation in Kai looks like these days. Something Sereni should know, considering when they find her, she's nose deep in a political theory book. It was only a matter of time until Raiden let her into the library. Originally, it was to help her practice Aeondor, but Sereni can't seem to get the lines to start in the air, hence why now she's reading Sayor's Encyclopedia of Political Myths. At least she's still pretty, so darn pretty that Raiden barely notices her black splotches anymore. The book claims Fyrdel is full of crap, and that Wyrn wasn't into Shudirith like he is now. Back in the day, the Wyrn was more into a pagan religion involving a lesser-known god who cared for stones in the earth. They want everyone to think that they were down with Jath's Jive before the cat hit the big time, because it'll make their OG look woke.
What?
AKA, Wyrn needs to seem like he was always absolute in his convictions, despite transitional religious alignments within its government. Did your eyes glaze over at all that during the explanation? Because so did Raiden's. Half because he's just so fixated on his new old best friend wife kinda sorta just don't tell her, but also half because he wants to know just what's going on in Kai.
We just have Swiggity do all of them from now on.
Right? You're too good at this. We're all just superfluous at this point.
Sereni has a blunt response, basically saying that she just kicked Aiden off the throne and into the noose. It kicks Raiden on his ass too. And that's it.
Oh no.
Yeah, it really was a very blunt response where it was like, well, it started with when I dethroned Iadon and then he killed himself. You know? It's like, damn,
Yeah.
Serene.
Well, like, everyone she talks to has, like, no respect or care for Iadon, and when they realized what he was doing, anyone who did is like, oh, fuck that, or screw that guy, you know?
Yeah.
So it's funny that she would just think, oh, I can just say that to this guy, he'll feel the same way, having no idea who he is.
I have no idea.
Yeah, he's like
it's his
he's
father.
a second son of a random noble house.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, so why would he care? He'd probably be like, oh, good, I always hated that guy, too.
And the worst part is he can't say anything because he's been lying to her for so long.
That's not the right time to reveal it, that is true.
This is...
You did.
Oh, I'm
Killed
here!
my dad?
You killed my
Yeah.
dad! You're right!
Also, like, what a cliffhanger to end this chapter set on. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
I remember thinking we should have gone on because it feels weird to end here.
This
Hey,
is
that
great.
means they just have to go watch our next podcast.
Exactly.
Right.
Because that's the only way you can find out what happens
The
next.
only way you can find out. Only you can prevent yourself from having anxiety attacks because you don't know what happens next.
Only you can prevent forest fires.
Subscribe and find out.
Don't just keep reading like
No,
just down on your
nonsense,
page.
nonsense.
Stop reading immediately.
I love... Okay, so she comments like, this is the oldest piece of literature on the planet. The Tales of Wyrn, or whatever the title was.
We're the king.
Wyrn the King, yes. So, do you guys know what the Earth equivalent is?
I looked it up,
Would it
but I
be like
forgot what it was.
Would it be Gilgamesh stuff?
Gilgamesh?
I believe
Is
it's in the Bhagavad
Gilgamesh.
Gita.
The Epic of Gilgamesh?
Gilgamesh, the oldest single story.
There was something
It's-
older, but I forgot.
So Gilgamesh is cited as the first great composition, but there are some really short ones that have survived that are from earlier, like the Kesh Temple hymn and the instructions of Sharupapak, which I'm probably butchering that. But Gilgamesh is widely considered to be the oldest story to have survived.
Did not know that.
You got how many years that was off the top of your head?
No, I do not, but I can quickly load that up.
Still waiting for them to make that into an Amazon series.
Oh God.
Oh God.
Starting as early
I wonder
as the
what they
third
do with that.
Nothing good.
It starts around 2100 BC. And the most complete version was written around 12th century BC.
Jeez.
So around
Alright.
3,000 years old?
Yeah.
Give or take a couple hundred years, 4,000 years old.
Yep. Impressive.
Man, for fantasy worlds, that's barely anything.
True.
Yeah.
True.
In the grand scheme of the history of Earth, that's barely anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it all existential now?
I know.
We are just a blip within an infinite cosmos.
I always love watching like Star Trek and like they'll comment like, "We have done this thing for 10,000 years." I'm like, "Really? 10,000 years?"
There is a feeling I started to get going through this chapter that I hadn't really gotten since like the first prologue, first chapter of Elantris that I read like, way back when. And that is just this idea of like this big surrounding, sometimes claustrophobic, intricate, vast, old city with like this crazy ancient historical knowledge that like you just want to explore. And this chapter gave me those feelings when they were like climbing the staircase to the top of the tower and there was only like the little pinpricks of light from all the way up, and they're like, well, it used to be this whole thing was glowing, but now it's like dark and it's blocked off. And I get the same feelings when they're going through the library all the way to the well.
And he's like, if we need to, we can escape to like one of the 3 abandoned cities on the other parts of Elantris.
Yeah.
It's like you can tell there was majesty and history in this world, but it's been forgotten.
I love that stuff.
So
It's like the same thing.
How you have
I was just gonna say it's like the same thing that's cool about like playing Dark Souls or something. You feel like you're uncovering lost history.
It's fascinating to base this in such a huge, epic, big city, all this history, all this magic and stuff, and to have the people in there because of what happens to them, nobody could care less. They might as well be out in the woods somewhere. They don't care at all. And you reference, a video game. If you were playing the game, you'd be researching every single like area in here, trying to map the whole thing out. But if they put it in and your health was always going down and you couldn't move very far and any damage you took would be for the rest of the game, you would not be exploring it at all. That would be a very boring game, I think.
Absolutely.
So Call of Cthulhu.
That's a very valid observation.
Yeah. And now
one
somebody's
thing I
gonna
always
make
liked
that game.
One thing I always like with the layout of Elantris is it's both only been 10 years, so you have plenty of people who know what it used to be, because it has not been that long. With how short people last in Elantris, they've had multiple generations pretty much just been through here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what, Sheor would have been maybe one of the oldest, like 2 years? And now
Yeah.
Sheor's gone. So you've had like, pretty much like 5, 6, 7 generations worth of people. So like, for people-wise, it's been a century.
Yeah.
Right. So like, I'm picturing getting sent in there, and my first thoughts would be of the place as it is now, right? Like, okay, I'm not in Elantris, the old ancient city. I'm in Elantris, the crazy war zone where they put all the sick people. I need to find out how to
Oh, if you're
survive.
lucky, yeah.
Yeah.
My first thought would be, what's over there? Beaten with a club, and I just stay there on the ground for the rest of the time, basically.
Mission 1, survive.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Just take.
This is
take
before
the
they've
step
given you a
towards Tirana.
tutorial either. Yeah, okay, I'll try my best.
Okay. Anything else for this chapter set then? I feel like as we're getting closer to the ending, it's starting to become, here's just actual things that are happening. The payoffs are going to be coming up soon.
Yeah, I've always felt like this book, it does like the whole turn, it just shifts completely when Raoden met Sereni earlier. And now it just continues that with the... In this section, you had the wedding, that fails. Raoden shows up and meets Sereni, just completely different at the end of this chapter set than the beginning.
Yeah, for real. I really like these chapters. I feel like a lot did happen. They're pretty punchy, too.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's definitely a change of pace that has happened in the last, I don't know, 8-10 chapters.
It's very refreshing. Okay, then.
We also got a great phrase that I'm going to use for the rest of my life. A two-headed Farron would never leave its nest. Because all Farrons like to do is chirp at each other.
Scream at each other.
Yeah. So if they were like two-headed, they would never have to leave.
Okay, well, next time we're going to be covering chapters 44 to 49, but right now it's time to head into the spoiler realm. So if you have not finished this book, the entire series, or potentially the entire Cosmere, then we recommend that you stop here because it is likely that we will talk about everything and anything. If you are up to date, feel free to stick around because it is likely that we'll bring up details you may have missed or plot threads still yet to come. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, star, heart, whatever it is on this podcast. And don't be afraid to comment your own thoughts and predictions. You can find us at cosmereconnectionspod@gmail.com, at @CConnectionspod on Twitter, and we even have our own Facebook group. We would love to hear from you. But at this where we must part, and my name is ReaderWarrior. I have been joined by Swiggity Swoo.
We're like a six-headed Farron.
Dragon.
Seven.
Dragon.
It's nice being able to jump back in.
John.
Damn you, Dash!
Okay.
Have a good one.
And thank you to our lovely guests from Cosmere Chronicles. Is there anything you guys would like to pimp out or shout out or your own works?
I'll just say, if you want to listen to us, Cosmere Chronicles, I've read through Cosmere before, Justin, and we have another person on our show, Sheeta. They've never read it before. If you want to get into a bunch of relationship shipping in Cosmere, listen to us. You'll get plenty of that.
That's not me. That's all shit.
we
It's
finished
okay, you can admit
Elantris.
it.
We finished Elantris. We finished Final Empire. When this episode comes out, we'll either be at the end of Well of Ascension or beginning of Hero of Ages. Yep, and I'm Joe.
Justin, anything you would like to?
Pimp out. You may follow me on the internet at Profanity Beaver, most places. If you
That's
thought I
an
was just
amazing
so
handle.
great that you need to do so.
Don't
Follow.
forget, there's always another connection. Bye. And we're back! Spoilers! Chapter 38. I don't think there's anything spoiler related at all in anything of 38. You have Hrathen and his healing, which we know was false, but that's pretty obvious in story by now. You have Xenolon showing up, which I don't think he provides anything to the later parts of the book.
He's just kind of there.
Yes.
Sadly. Oh man, I had such ambitions for that guy when I was reading it. I thought, oh, he's going to be a huge deal. He's going to take this over from Hrathen. They're going to have a whole little mini spiritual war thing going, and no, nothing. I was so sad.
He's just kind of there.
He's just there.
He's just there to stand. He's just there to stand and look pretty.
This is a person in the show or movie that's just, here's our big name actor. Here's
If
our
they don't
cameo.
just cut him out completely for
Or
time.
if they...
You know, yeah. I think his point was what you were saying before about to represent an aspect of religion more than to actually affect the plot that much.
Well, the only thing that he is there for is to read Iadon's will, because of the fact that he is the head of the Karathi religion, so no one can dispute the will. Like,
yeah, but when you're writing it, you could just say this other guy can do it, you know, like to introduce a whole character and have it not to take so much time to introduce him. Yeah, it was a shame.
We also
it had to be somebody who's not like local either, because if it was the priest that lives in Kai, it could have been discovered or leaked out so much more easily, so it had to be somebody who was remote.
We also don't know if Brandon has plans for this character in the later Elantris books.
It felt to me like he did back when he probably thought he was going to write a sequel, you know, within 20 years or whatever it's been.
He has plans to, supposedly. That's one of the next
Joe
things
said that.
that's going to be coming
There's
out.
potential, but it feels more of like he is just like a bit of a, like, it's almost like gives more dynamic to sorry, my brain
Warren
suddenly
Sereni.
blanked. Not to the leader of Shudareth.
Wern.
Weirn, right? So like, because honestly, when we learn about Siainalin, that it's like, oh, the reason they picked him is because Weirn is so young, right? Weirn Wolfden the Third, and so now we're honestly, in a sense, it's letting us learn more about Weirn Wolfden because he was picked as a leader when he was so young. So it's like very interesting that it's like almost gives us this like, Siainalin is, yeah, he's this guy and he's, you know, loves his pretty hair and all that stuff, you know, uses L'Oreal, but, you know, when we take a look at, you know, Weirn Wolfden, it's like, what are we learning? Like, he's this young, but he's like, it's interesting that, because they picked him not because of his looks, but because of some other reason, which I can't potentially speak of theories-wise, but, like, there's, like, a potential, you know, like, inside of later, you know, books that I feel like that's going to become more important rather than actually Siainalin himself being more, you know, and the L'Oreal ads are going to be.
Should we pull the M&Ms? Should we have an M&Ms break?
There's nothing we can predict in Elantris. Elantris is purely guesswork. I think
He wanted to say something.
Brandon has specifically said Book 2 is picking up specifically on talking about certain aspects of you know, Shudareth, right? And so there's this aspect that, but he's also we've also talked about its likelihood is it's more in the future in dealing with some of the characters that are side characters here, and not some of the other main characters. But there's definitely a very potential chance because of. So am I allowed to talk about WOBs, by the way, that deal directly with Elantris?
Yeah.
I would say yes, yeah.
Of course.
So he's talked about there's been WOBs around like the theory, but I'm pretty sure more recently it's been confirmed that Weirn Wolfden III is picked by autonomy, and Shudareth specifically, Yadath is based around attributes of autonomy, and it's more driven by the aspects of like, right, it's like this passion, it's their like this, like they want to learn more about it, and so Shudareth is kind of based around like autonomy and things like that, and these other, and the other gods, and how he's affecting that, and so like that's like specifically is talked about. So I think that's why it's going to be particularly important to see this, and the fact is, I don't know, being a chosen by autonomy may make it so he doesn't age. Like, why was he picked so young? Is he going to still be young in 1,000 years? Likely when we pick up, because this is 1,500 years before the main, before like Mistborn happens, right? We're like 1,300 years before Mistborn happens.
Okay.
So that may be an effect, and something important to note from Sea Island himself.
Okay. My only big theory was that I was thinking, because I found it weird that both the Shu-Dareth and the Shu-Korath religions both had a leaderless event, is maybe whenever one's leader dies, they kill off the other religion's leader as well, so they have to have a
that would be
synchronous
weird.
leadership.
Kill off?
What?
That's
I don't
dark.
know.
Wow.
No.
That's
just
cool.
what
That's
you basically
badass,
did.
though.
Well,
Why
I just
would
found
you
it
do
weird
where
that
did that come from?
That's
it
cool.
was the fact that
That's canon now,
Shu-Korath
man.
elected a leader or picked the Wern, and then immediately Shu-Dareth, I'm switching them in my mind, Shu-Dareth
you
elected
are.
the Wern, and then Shu-Korath elected this guy. So I'm like, why did they both have no leader at the same exact time?
Yeah, but you jump right to
Did
they
we-
kill him?
We don't know that they did.
Or they
We
made
don't
him
know that they
retire?
did. There could have
I'm
been
just
There you go.
throwing it
That's-
out.
years in between.
I'm just throwing it out as a theory.
No,
I'm
no,
placing
it-
bets. I'm
It's
placing
something
bets
that
for book
I've
2.
never considered, though. I've never had anyone bring up, like, why was there a switch in leadership so soon, right? Like, the whole aspect of when Wyrn Wolfton was picked, why did they then have to immediately go pick someone else who, according to Sereni, like, is just as pretty and young to be able to kind of, like, be, like, this young, driven leader, but, like, why was there a switch? Like, and also, what causes the switch of the leader of Shudareth or
Exactly.
Shu-Korath?
Okay.
So, no,
I don't
like
know.
that.
I don't think they killed him though. They probably just had him turn in his badge and his,
They didn't
comb.
I'm just implying that the religions
His
are like
badge.
yin and yanging or something.
Also, we don't know how Karathi or Dorothy, how new leaders are chosen or why new leaders are chosen. We're implying that they're chosen because the old leader died. We don't know if that's actually the case or not.
Sereni said the
No,
Karathi
she said
elders.
nothing about, but they said nothing about the previous patriarch dying.
True.
We don't
It's
know
true.
if that's what happened.
It's
or
true,
not.
but we also have to do things like religions are going to be based around like basics of like pure parallels or mirrors inside of the real world. And if you look across generally things like major religions like Catholicism or things like this also could potentially be tied into is like Buddhism or things like that, is you're going to have to look at is generally there's only one one Dalai Lama, there's only one leader at a particular time, and usually that's based around a life cycle rather than kind of like a vote in, vote out. But you're right, we don't know how that was changed in any fashion.
Yeah, but how much faith do you have in a spiritual leader at that level if they can just get voted out randomly at some point? Like, that doesn't feel like divine selection. It feels like, just a popularity like a mundane world popularity contest.
I mean, the Pope
The Pope of
decided to
Elantris.
step down, and everybody was like, "You can't do that. You're supposed to speak God's will unto death." And he's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Well, God told me to step down." And he's like, "Shoot, I can't hold him to that."
Well, when they say that,
There's also
you
a
cannot
time where we
argue.
had 3
So, yeah.
popes.
So
Yeah.
true. Okay, so there's the funeral, and nothing really happens. And then there's the wedding. Anything for those 2 events?
Well, like I said, Sereni actually dodged a bullet here, I think. Because if she found out Raoden's just fine and everything's great and everything's going to turn out and then she's still married to this old man, even though she likes him, I think she would be quite disappointed. And I think Raoden would be kind of unhappy too. The only one who would benefit would be Royal.
Yeah, but he was
Well-
pretty much like no physicality would be taking part in this marriage.
It would not be
Well-
mandated, I think is how he said it.
Yeah, because Serena
Well-
was like, there has to be an heir.
Yeah, yeah. And he's like, well, if you
And
say
he's like,
so,
no,
I
no, no,
guess.
no, hold on. Just wait for me to kick the bucket, you know.
Yeah.
Then you can find
Melt it in a
whoever
few
you want.
days or a few years anyway, so, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I
But
mean,
now,
in his case, it
what
really
would've-
is a few days, but you know.
Yeah, but he didn't know that.
What would have happened if she did marry Royal, and then eventually Raoden does get out of Elantris, cures everything? What would have happened then? Because she had the original marriage contract with Raoden. Technically, she was married to him, but now she physically got married to Royal, and Raoden's back.
I would guess
Well,
that technically
Serene would have
her
been stoned as an
marriage-
adulteress.
Her marriage to Royal would probably be like null and void. Like it wouldn't be
Oh, because she was
legal
already married to
because
him,
she was
right?
already
Well,
married.
But
And
here's the
technically-
problem with that is technically according to the
And
Karathi
here's how we
Church,
get on a tangent
when
for
someone
an hour.
right, well, but according to the Karathi Church, John flips sideways. And
Yeah.
It is distracting. I'm glad you pointed
according
that
to the
out.
Karathi Church, when someone becomes an Elantrian, they die.
There you go. Yep.
And so as soon as they die, then that contract with so if Roial didn't die, and if we had Raoden come back, I'm sorry, I'm going to pronounce it the way that the audiobook pronounces it. So for all the audiobook listeners, I'm in your corner here. So then she would actually technically have to stick with her marriage with Roial, because also the whole reason that she can marry again is because once it's official that that the previous king is dead, King Iadon is dead, then his rule reign, all of his laws technically cease to exist, and that's why she's allowed to get married. And so not only did the contract break with Raoden, then all of Iadon's laws break as soon as his burial is completed, and so that's why she's able to marry again at all. And so then it's like, oh, Raoden's alive and Elantris is back. Then it's like, all previous agreements are technically null and void according to who they made it with, which is through the Karathi Church. And so since it's kind of like, going through, the Church of England or whatever, that like that's the piece that's like the say so. And so once that's done, she would kind of have to stick with that, because it's like, but again, it's like she would basically have to wait till Roial dies, and then she can then go back and marry Raoden. So they just kind of have to be buddy
You just have to
pals
wait a
until
few
that
years.
happens.
Yeah.
Or Raoden could just off him and just get his girl back. But
Yeah, that sounds in character for sure.
that totally.
Also, at that point, wouldn't Raoden then be considered king due to Iadon's laws that it goes?
Because
that
all
would've
of
been put
Iden's
in
laws
for-
end. The point is, all of Iden's laws.
No,
No.
the
All of the treaties. The treaty with Iadon's house that Serene made.
Yeah, that was it.
ended.
Yeah.
The
Does it specifically
laws
say
that he
treaty?
made- Yes.
Does it say all
I think
treaties
so.
end? I mean, technically, it's. I'd love to see that. I'll have the book open. And
Well, I was talking about the law that Sinal had proclaimed.
You
where
can do it.
every- I always had trouble with his name. Where everything is now hereditary, so the king line would go to Iadon's son, and when Raoden turns out not to be dead,
Yes, that's
then
true.
it'd be his.
Oh no.
That's
I guess,
if
yeah,
the
you're
people
going through
would.
Karathi. The Karathi is now cementing that in law as it's going, which
That's if-
technically means it goes to Serene.
That's if the people would even consider if Raoden were to show up in Elantrian to be alive.
Yeah.
I was saying,
I
like,
can't
after
remember
everything where he puts in
They
the
do
chasm
later.
line and all that.
Which is thanks to Serene, so none of that.
Yeah,
would
I was
happen.
gonna say, if Serene doesn't go in, does Raoden ever get out?
Nope.
Or does
it
Delof
says-
win?
So in the book, it says that I found it. So it says that her marriage contract is void, and it dissolved as soon as Iadon killed himself, thereby removing his line from the throne. And that when the moment someone else becomes king, the treaty between Erelon and Teod will end, and she will cease to become an Ereline princess.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay, there you go. Thank you.
Anything else for chapter 40? This is how we get
That's
on an hour-long
38,
tangent.
by the way.
Sorry,
Not 40.
38. Anything
Sorry,
else?
we haven't made it that far, reader.
38 is such like a weird number for me to have in my mind. Okay. Chapter 39. This is the shortest
Lot
chapter
to talk
of
about here.
Oh yeah, so much. The shortest chapter of the book, I believe, less than a page. And the only thing that's really there is the tee up that he's got plans for not just Erelon.
No, this is the no. This is just that the conquest of Erelon was almost complete.
Yeah, that's the next one that happens in this 42. So.
Yeah, but I'm saying
this is
he's building up to that.
this is
point.
just the one where he just watches everyone upset.
Yep.
Yep.
It's so sad to see Hrathen think, haha, it's right in my hands. Having no idea how many forces are working against him. Like, that this has been hopeless for quite a while at this point. It's quite sad and funny.
So I'm curious, from Hrathen's perspective, when do you think he had the assassin slip in the poison? What point do you think he had that happen? Because he's saying, he's like, I'm sitting there and I'm sweating. He's like sweating bullets. He's like, I didn't even think that was like. He started getting worried that like it was going to happen in time, and then he's like, yeah, it happened like so dramatically that it's great. But he was planning on having it happen earlier. He was expecting it to happen earlier. That means he probably gave it to her in the morning.
When he downed it, how long was it until he got the stuff?
It didn't really say he slept.
It happened to him overnight.
I think it was
overnight.
So we have any point between like him falling asleep to him waking up. Could have been it.
Yeah.
I think it would have been.
He didn't know.
I think it would have been a
cool. It's probably like something like 6 to 8 hours, and so he probably gave it to her in the morning because the thing was happening in the afternoon because they missed the window to drop her off. So it
would have been
happened late enough in the afternoon.
I think it would have been a cool detail if, like, during the wedding, you see her take a drink.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of hoping for. It's like, oh, she woke up and made sure she like drank her, her wine in the morning, or like what part of her preparation she drinks like a ceremonial wine 8 hours before the wedding. So you can kind of like have that foreshadowing of like she drank something.
I think it would have been just nice at like the funeral and how you just see her like with a drink. Because if you wake up and like she pours herself a drink, that's suspicious. But if it shows like she's at this funeral thing at like a party basically,
and they do like a toast or something.
Yeah. Or
and then you have the danger of somebody else taking her drink and just screwing this whole thing up.
You gotta have some throwaway lines.
The assassin is a waiter. The assassin's a waiter. He gave her a specific cup.
Yeah, until she's like, "Oh, I'm not thirsty. Here, Royal. Oh, thank you."
Shoot,
it worked too. So give it to.
Tasted.
It turns into a Looney Tunes episode.
But like some line
the
of
best
like,
time would have to be when she's alone, because I mean she has to drink or eat stuff every day in the morning and stuff. So a good assassin, I think, could sneak it in somewhere.
I was thinking maybe lunchtime was when she had it. They snuck it into like her food or her drink during lunchtime. That's what I would guess.
Yeah, but then you have the thought of lunchtime. Like I don't know. Again, we don't know. The possibility is 1 hour to 8 hours, and we don't know. So I just feel like Hrathen wouldn't like take the risk, because as long as she turns into an Elantris sometime during the day, he probably wouldn't care if it was on the way to the funeral or at the marriage. It's just like, oh, she's dead, she's gone, she can't do the marriage. He'd want to make sure like if the max time is 8 hours, he wants to have the digestion time.
I just wonder how instantaneous it is. Does it like happen over the course of an hour, or is it very much like you look at your hand, you see it like turn gray and the spots appear very dramatically?
I guess it'd have to be pretty quick, because nobody noticed anything until she had like the veil down. At that point, it could have changed.
So like
but it said she was pretty conservatively dressed, right? So like maybe it was already happening to the body, and then it got to the head.
Well, and then she was doing like these prayers for potentially, she had like they have like a time of reflection, which I think is very specifically stated. Like they have a time of isolation and reflection where she doesn't see anyone inside the cross church while she does her prayers and prepares herself, potentially for to a few hours, where she has the veil on, she's fully dressed, the veil's on, no one sees her, like the veil's covering her face for multiple hours leading up to it. So I think there's like, I think that's kind of like our cue, our clue, our little hidden, like, instead of a drink, it's like make sure that it's like no one's been seeing her for hours, and like Sion doesn't, like, they've made a point, doesn't go into the Karothy Church. He's in the Karothy Church, so therefore you know that he hasn't been seen for hours as well.
Yep, and I just looked. Yeah, the veil was down while she was doing the prayers.
Mhm.
I didn't know if like she walked out and like
A point.
Rena and Kais put it down.
At whatever point between she put on the veil to she takes off the veil, she changed.
Yes.
Okay. Now we're on to chapter 40. The 3 ruined towns outside of Elantris. For a moment, I almost forgot about them. And the other
You
points.
forgot about north, south,
Yeah.
east? Or
Well,
whatever
he
it is?
doesn't.
Yeah.
He just remarks to them as like 3 abandoned cities outside of Elantris. He doesn't remark the one to the north, the one to the west, and the one to the south.
I was exactly the same way when they started
There's just a
bringing those
random
up. I'm
cluster.
like, oh yeah.
Yeah. There's just a random. Oh no.
If you don't constantly remind me of a detail in a book, I'm going to completely forget it over time.
But that's the important part of the climax.
I know it is.
4
I know.
cities.
That's why he brought it up again here, because he's like, in case you
Yeah.
forgot, there's 4 cities. But I'm just going to say that, like, you know, it's just a casual thing. Don't think too much about it.
And then Sereni enters the city. Anything else for this chapter? Okay, somehow that was shorter than the shortest chapter.
That's because everything in
chapter-
this chapter is so of what's happening right now, you know? Yeah. And just clues of how she's not really an Elantrian, which you already know while reading it.
Chapter 41. So Sereni's being shown around New Elantris. She sees how they've been able to take her gifts and repurpose them into things they can actually use. I disagree with the line of like there can be tyranny with there cannot be tyranny if there's love, because that just means like they don't know it's a tyranny. Like, I hate to continue my Walking Dead comparisons, but the governor could very well be Raoden.
Maybe in a few, if Raiden was going to a few years.
The governor was so much worse.
It is.
Well,
and I'm also referring to
give
TV
Raiden
show
a little
version.
more time.
Yes. But like
It's even
in
worse
the
in the
show,
trailer.
like very much a tyranny, but the people in the city loved him.
Well, it depends who
Yes.
your love and who your tyranny is aimed at, right? Because if you have love for these people, but tyranny for all the people they're exploiting, then that would still be tyranny.
True.
And you could also do tyranny in the name of love, right? Or no, because people love. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, some of those Germany people back then seemed pretty passionate about their leader, so.
You've got Raoden falling down and glowing, and which still confuses me, but I think we're at the point where it's just happens.
We've
Well,
got
it's because you just have the back of the door in him.
Yeah. Just my question is like why and how. With the exception of like
than these.
we argued it in our last episode that's not going to be out for
All right.
a few weeks now, but it's just like the confusion is still there because Brandon doesn't really explain it in this book, and it's now almost 20 years old.
So here, I'll throw an analogy here for this type of a situation. I mean, if you think about, I'm just gonna take this one. I don't think it's the best. My brain's still searching on for something that's potentially better. But so, and if you think about like carving into, if let's take like someone's body, right? If you take the thought of like someone that heals super fast, right? But when you carve something into that body, right? You immediately blood wells up. So now we're looking at like there's this aspect of like the blood has pressure, right? Way more pressure than normal. So it's going to be trying to come out. So, but the point is when you cut it, it then immediately, let's say it immediately heals up. But if you keep doing it again and again and again and again and again, that point, which in this case we're tying to the cognitive realm, right? So the cognitive and spiritual aspects, right? Because all the powers in the spirit is in the cognitive realm, and not just the spiritual realm. So the cognitive realm can remember that there's this point that's moving around Raoden, right? It's tied to Raoden rather than tied to a single like point on like a skin, where there's this cut that's happening again and again. And so every time it happens, it doesn't heal back, and especially with how frequently he does it, it's like your skin gets thinner there, right? That
So it is
point
because
now thinner,
Raoden.
and so because now there's so much pressure, basically basically hook up a fire hose to the back into your body, right? Your body's like this giant fire hose, and if you create this crack or this pressure, it's gonna have this aspect, and then also you give it the power still has an aspect of sentience. You can't strip away that the power still wants to do what it wants to do, no matter how much you shred it up. It's like it still has this aspect of sentience, and so it's going to also be trying.
So it is
it's gonna
because
be the weakest
Raoden
point.
is continuously doing aeons.
And Galadin talks about it. He's like, well, A, you're always doing aeons, and B, the door was always more powerful with certain Elantrians. So he's likely an already highly extra connected Elantrian who's basically sitting there creating cuts in his hand, and so that point is so thin when the pressure just builds up, it basically like squirts out right into his body and through out and get out of his body. And so you got to kind of think about it like that. Their wounds can be left inside of the cognitive realm, and that's where it's tied to rather than the spiritual one, so it can push through Raoden. That's kind of my only thought and theory around how to explain it.
Didn't Brandon say that in one of the annotations for Elantris? Was that
Quite possibly.
It was like,
I've not been following.
Yeah,
the
it was like
annotations.
all sorts of pressure building up into him. That's why his first Aeon that he puts the chasm line in, it causes like this big tornado of fire because it all comes out of him at once. Then after that, whenever he does fire again, it's still weak.
Right, and it's not just
Does he
Raoden,
continue to have...
The whole world has this pressure, but specifically in this area, it's had no release. And so it's found him as some kind of release. But, sorry, go ahead.
Does he continue to have the waves of pain after he does that first Aeon?
No.
Nope, it goes
No, once he does it, all that pressure had left him. And then after that, when he puts in the chasm line, there's something for the pressure to leave.
Right.
Okay.
So now it's like you have a controlled nozzle rather than basically a cut along the edge of the spout where it can like kind of squirt out of.
Okay.
So.
And then we have the Sereni scene where, strangely, Sereni can't draw Aeons for some reason, even though she's an Elantrian.
An Elantrian.
That should be one of our first major clues. Like, well, I shouldn't say first. It's one of our many other clues.
Except for like the direct part where Harathon says he poisoned her.
Like, I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah,
Harathon like directly says.
If you just skip all the Harathon chapters, then there you go.
Yeah, for all Sereni thinks, she can't draw him because she's a terrible painter.
Right,
yeah,
that is true. They did set that up ahead of time.
That was weird to me.
Line worth crap. So.
They imply that it's not that completing an incorrect Aeon won't produce a result, but drawing one originally and it will never be correct won't even make it happen.
Like if the slant of the lines are off,
yeah,
the Aeon won't happen.
Then it'll just fail. It'll just turn off.
Yeah, but if you miss a line, it will
complete everything else properly.
But it complete everything else properly. It will still do something, but it'll do the wrong thing.
Yes, that power can still sort of get through because it has again enough of an outlet, but not a complete outlet, and so then it kind of changes the way it comes through. Versus if like right? It's the whole like square, circle, hole kind of a thing, you know. If it just can't even get through the shape at all, right? You do the wrong shape. You do a pentagon. You do a star, and you're still trying to shove a square peg through it. Like it ain't going through at all because you did the wrong shape.
Yeah, but how satisfying must it be when you actually get it right? Like, I'm picturing, maybe I'm just too much of a gamer, but I'm picturing a little bit of a vibration as you actually line it up, and the lights like starting to come out, and it's like, oh, I'm getting it, guys. You know, it kind of like if you ever played like Rock Band, and if you're singing, you have like this meter that goes up and down with your pitch, and when you hit the right note, it kind of lights up that section. I imagine that's exactly what it would be like. Just, oh, I'm nailing it, you know. The other thing I wanted to bring up for this section was somebody was carving a stone horse. If you know, you know.
Tang.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Even his name.
Okay.
Yeah, if I had to
So
check
the
that
video
out.
game point, I was gonna say, I was either seeing it sort of like lock picking in Skyrim, how you can, whenever you get close, it starts to vibrate, or in Hogwarts Legacy, whenever you learn a new spell, you have to like trace it initially to learn it, and then afterwards you can just use it.
I think on our podcast, Shada made that exact example, the Hogwarts one, if I'm remembering right, because she was playing it at the time. Just because, yeah, the spells in the air thing, it's so specific to that. So if they ever make an Elantris video game, there you go.
I think it was Castlevania
You gotta
Symphony
imagine
of
with
the
the
Night.
controller doing those intricate little designs. Jeez.
You had to like do that. It was on the DS.
Yeah.
And then you're like trying to heal someone.
Oh,
like, I
with
need
the
to
stylus?
specify
Yeah,
leg.
yeah. And they make you do it every single time you cast any spell in that game.
Yeah.
Especially, oh man, some
That'd
of
be horrible.
those later Aeons are just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Or can take him like even Raoden like several seconds to like
Yeah.
draw out the whole thing.
But that's why, like, that's what makes it cool is, you know, if you're in a fight with somebody and they're an Elantrian, you got to imagine they have some Aeon stuff already set up, and then it becomes a very intellectual engagement.
Mm-hmm.
Aeon Rio? I don't even want to think about drawing that one.
It was fun
Okay,
using
anything-
the Aeons to make the logo. Like, speaking of just drawing Aeons, like, I don't know. That was a fun project. The Aeon design is
It was
really,
a very
really cool.
nice logo. Anything else for chapter 41? Okay, chapter 40. This is where you get the actual line of, oh, Teode's next.
Yes.
Which I actually love the way Hrathen uses his miracle to not only control Erelon, but also take over Teode, because he knows after this, it's just going to be a war.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
I mean, also think about just like Delos' perspective, right? He's the Rogdet of the monastery, you know, and he's like he himself thinks that he's won. He's like, ah ha ha! Finally, the stupid Wraithen's out of my way. Like, I've got full control of everything. And think about like what he's trying to go through, because he's like, he has access to all of the monks of Dachor and like all their powers, and he's just like, Wraithen comes back like, what's kind of going through his head in this aspect of like, he's seen Elantrians, right? He's so old. He's seen Elantris. He's seen their powers. He specifically made himself be strong against them. And then he just like sees this cure, and he has no idea that there was a poison that was used. Wraithen never tells him, and he's just like, he doesn't know that Wraithen has access to this, and so I just kind of, it's just like I kind of like thinking and seeing like he backs down grudgingly because he's like, in his mind he's like, yes, finally, like I got free reign, I can get my monks in here, I can do whatever I want, we'll just destroy this thing like lickety split, you know, kind of a thing. but now he's like,
How-
wait, what?
I would
Yeah,
just figure
Hrathen
that
turns-
Delof. I just figured that Delof always knew that Hrathen was bullshitting when he became a Elantrian. I mean, because Delof should know about the magic, and he knows that Fjordans cannot become Elantrians.
I the rage in his eyes when he saw. Yeah. I think once Hrathen returned, he realized there was a trick to it. But when he, like the hate in his eyes when like Hrathen steps out as an Elantrian,
That's true.
I think he thought God punished him.
What's he think when Hrathen's an Atlantrian, comes back cured, and then starts saying, we don't need to hate all the Atlantrians? That's got to increase Delof's hate for that guy immensely.
Oh yeah.
It probably makes
Well,
his whole takeover of and like basically kicking Hrathen out of the big seat like so much more satisfying because he's like, oh my gosh, you have been pissing me off for so long, not letting me kill these Elandrians. You come back, get to the curb,
And at this
get
point,
out of my way.
the monks are already on the way, because his attack happens in a couple days.
Yep.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
they're
Monks are
already.
already
But that's the thing is that we learn when you look at it from the new perspective at the letter from Wyrn, it was my monks will go and destroy and burn everything down no matter what you do, right? Like the whole meaning of the letter changes, and
Yeah,
so
the meaning of the letter was, it wasn't you have 3 months to convert the people. It was give them the warning that they have 3 months left to live. Like that was the
So Delof and Delof again has been in there. He was changed to look like an Araline again decades before, you know, and so it's like the plot has been coming, and now he finally has to go ahead. But it's just like all the like little things that Hrathen's doing, just like to piss him off. He's like, I already know I'm gonna do this, and I already know I can kick you to the curb, but I can't show my hand quite yet because they're not here. And so now you're just pissing me off, like.
It's so sad how much effort and work Hrathen is putting into making this work, trying to redeem himself, do this stuff in a good way, and to find out his whole like religious order does not give a crap about any of that stuff. It's so depressing.
Yeah.
But it beats the mysteries.
I don't know. The mysteries had a
things
few
do.
good points. Should we shut them down already? How do we know that all of this prosperity wasn't because they were sacrificing these poor ladies, and now that they stopped is why things went so bad? How do we know?
Possibly.
Turns out that's the only
Bioden's
true religion
laughing
in the world.
from up or
Yeah,
down
yeah.
there, and it's just like, you should have
Sacrifice a few
thanked
more
me.
maidens and see what happens.
Yep.
Well, and also here, also on this whole like, you know, it's not as mysteries aren't as bad. Like, one person's life once a month versus burning tens of thousands, not millions of people to clear out the rest of the nation, and that's technically, yeah. Anyway, but that's like
Trailed lives.
might as well just like burn out tens of thousands of people. You know, I mean, one a month. You know, for each cult, right? That's like what, like a dozen a month versus 10. It's still going to take them, several thousand years to kind of reach the same point that, that Shu'Dareth is killing people.
If I'm that one in the month, I'm going to disagree for sure. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Now you're on Delof's side. I mean,
until the monks of Dahor come in and kill you anyway. So
Well, yeah.
You only had 3 days to live anyway. So.
And Delof's over there sacrificing a guy to travel 15 feet.
Yeah,
Really?
Yeah, that was the best part. What a jerk.
Chapter 43. So we have Raoden and Galadon. They go through the really tight hallway and up the stairs to the wall. They see that the city guards are now protecting Telrai. They go back to the secret library, finds Rumi, and she tells him, "Hey, by the way, I kind of killed the king indirectly."
The bluntest way possible.
Yeah.
Poor
And we also,
Raiden.
yeah, we also learned that Yadeth wasn't even really a big god.
Yeah, it says he's a rock god, so it just makes me theorize that he was the reason that the chasm was created.
Whoa, that's cool. That's a cool
That's
theory.
interesting.
Because that would be connect to Wern had Yadith do something, he's underground, cause some sort of earthquake that makes the chasm.
Oh my god.
I could like that.
I think it's an interesting theory until you again like look back at the Wob and who Yadith like truly is, or at least where that power like is coming from as to which shard that's connected to, and the shard that he's getting his power from isn't in the earth, isn't. But I do think if that was
Go ahead, man. Go crazy.
I was already deafening. Him.
So right.
Keep
so
it
you have
short.
Autonomy. The point is that the power of Yadith comes from autonomy, right, and making him a splinter, essentially like a champion or a splinter of autonomy. And so having that aspect, like it's all part of Elantris and what the words of Brandon. I don't know. I'm never sure where that line is, right? But so and that may be, and if it did come from Wyrn and Wyrn talking to Yadith being autonomy, having it go through the ground is an interesting aspect. But I also like the obscure god becoming a major god is also an aspect into Era 2 of religism becoming
I was
Trellism.
gonna talk
Trell.
about that.
And
I was
the
gonna
Thousand
mention
Eyes
that.
of Trell. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and continue.
Yeah, so I was
train
gonna
of
say,
thought.
because we know that autonomy has. We also see autonomy in Era 2 of Mistborn taking Trelligism into Trellism, and usurping that religion as well. So there is a precedent for autonomy usurping a previous religion to create their avatar on that world.
Like she's using it as her like introduction paper. Like she's trying to, it's a way
Instead
of saying
of creating a story from scratch, she just kind of rewrites one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a fan fiction author.
But like
autonomy is just a fan fiction author.
Okay.
What were you gonna say, John?
I was gonna say it kind of makes sense too, because who's gonna know better how to mess with one shard's magic system than another shard? So
right,
it kind of has a sort of sense to it. I don't know. I like it.
All right, are we coming back?
Yeah, and yeah. I have one more thought. Hold on.
Oh.
I have one more thought. Sorry. 1 second.
Okay, come on.
I was just gonna bring up the timeline of kind of technically Elantris again is happening 1,300 years before Mistborn ever occurs. So autonomy like has a precedent of doing this. Like the precedent technically is being set inside of Elantris and happening 300 years is when they kind of talk about like this Yadith is still this like lowly one amongst many rock gods, and it's only it's only been happening, but again it's like this over 300 years, and again that's kind of the same timeline that we have from Trellism, and Trellism turning into Trellism is a 300-year span. So it seems to be a pretty picked number of like, hey, this is I don't know if it's her first time. She's had 8, 9, 10 millennia since the shard has split, but this is definitely like a pattern. 300 years using another religion, and then she does it again in Mistborn. And how many other times has she done it, or will she do it again?
Yeah,
Okay.
Wouldn't Trelligism be more than 300 years? Because it was a dead religion, and then you had 300 years added on top of that.
That's true.
So it's from whenever it got killed.
Closer to 1300.
Which I guess was about 1,000 years before. So I guess trilogism was probably happening around the same time that Elantris was happening, or could have been being seeded beforehand by the guy Trell, through like autonomy used Trell, which comes from white sand. That's actually been talked about. So through a Wob is Trell was one of the guys from white sand, and he's then used by autonomy later. That happens 2,000 years before, or 500 years before Elantris. So if you look at the 300 years before that for Elantris, and then at least 1,300 years, right, because of Lord Ruler Saturn for a millennia before trilogism. So very likely, actually, you're right. They could be happening at the same time or similar time frames. That she's going around seeding different worlds with Yadith and trilogism.
Okay, color me corrected.
Sorry.
There were
Yep.
slight Mistborn spoilers. Okay. But I think that's just about what we have for this chapter set.
Pretty much.
Oh, Joe, do you want to mention whatever it is that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, it had to connect to Stormlight.
Going dark again?
Yeah.
Is it something you just want to comment on us, or does it
Good.
have to do with Elantris?
No. It kind of has to do with Elantris, but it's from stuff you guys have
Good
talked about.
conversation. I'll see you guys in 10 more minutes.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks for being a good sport about it.
What is it?
So yeah, I don't know if you guys have talked about it since the episode, but you were talking about that one Elantrian that went in the pool, and you were discussing whether he had died or not. But there was a Wob where he is the Elantrian that Kaladin and them meet in Shadesmar and Oathbringer.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up.
Nice.
Yeah, I just assumed that since you said you were talking about him, that I was like, oh, you must have covered that. But
That's right, I know.
I sometimes don't always re-listen to all the past episodes that come out. But yeah, no, he's the same dude. He's out there. So I love that he's like, oh yes, I finally get to die, and then it's really just like, plop, you're in Shadesmar, where there's a giant like power storm going on. So kind of, I wonder almost like, what's his adventure getting out of Elantris? There you go, Kay.
Okay, so we're saying that I am again correct in reading.
I'm...
Twice
Okay.
even, because his name's not Greg. Or whatever.
Glenn. Okay. I thought they died. Okay, then what happened to the other Elantrian?
What other Elantrian?
The
Salen?
soldier one that they threw in
Salen.
afterward.
Oh,
Salen.
Salen. They dropped in. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
again, all of the cognitive realm is a giant like
Yeah.
death storm, and specifically between Wob and learning from Wit, right? It's really hard to get in and out. So likelihood is the old guy that went in, he was a previous Elantrian, so he probably already had previous knowledge about how to get in and out of Cell, because he had knowledge of other Elantrians that they may have talked about. Oh, hey, this is our portal, drop us in. Well, here's how we're going to get on and off of this world, where Salen had no experience, so he likely just got torn to shreds by the storm because he didn't know how to navigate, whereas the other guy had previous knowledge from before Elantris fell, and which means they had a chance. We know that people could get off because we have other Elantrians, right? Off-world, we see them. Heck, you know, that left, technically, Elantrians that left, you know, millennia before any of this, before even Elantris, the book happens, and they're off running around, messing with things. So that's my
Well, thank
guess
you.
as to what happened to him.
Thank you, Joe, for that clarification. I was not aware of that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Anything else for this chapter set? Justin, do you have any questions you would like to ask us in relation to Elantris, as we are a fairly well-knowledged group, and if you have any questions.
Well, two of us are.
One of them, not me.
Nor me.
I would like to know your favorite character. I'm always curious about that in any story.
Sweetie, you want to go first?
Okay. It's kind of a basic one, but I've always just been totally fascinated by Kelsier. That guy could be taking a poop, and it would be the most interesting chapter of all time.
Are you talking full Cosmere favorite character or Elantris favorite character?
Well, let's say Elantris. You could drift
Oh, I'm
into
so sorry.
Mistborn if you need to, because I've read that one.
I just
Kelsier
went like
still
full.
counts.
I went like full. I guess if
Kelsey's
we're gonna do
poop is
Elantris,
the
we'll
most
do
interesting character.
It would be.
Kelsier poops, Bren.
Of course, my poop is interesting. What do you
No.
want from me?
Kelsier, we got rid of you.
For
You'll never
Elantris,
get rid of
definitely,
Kelsier.
definitely Galadon.
Dragon?
I do enjoy Galadin. He's very interesting. I think I also really I'd probably say as far as one of my favorites though go, I love Hunky K, Uncle Kaiyan.
Yes.
Kyan's
Just
great.
like there's this aspect I like. He's just like the big, lovable guy, you know. He's like me, big beer belly. Used to have this giant beard, you know. But at the same time, he's just like a total like bad A, and he's got this giant that's like sitting on his wall that he's able to just like whip out and just like smash some skulls. And I just like, but I love his like, it's like he has this such history, and as you learn about him, but he's also just like this super affable, like cooks, cleans. He's just like this very like loving father figure, and so like especially in my state, like so I'm a father, you know, I've got my two of my own little kids, like probably at least one of them is probably the same age as K-Ice, you know, and so it's like I love this aspect of he's this super down to earth like fathering figure, but he's also just like super protective. But he's also got this whole like he was, you know, Drioke crushed throat, and like the whole history that kind of comes with that. But he's like a well-traveled person. You know, I've been to 16 countries, so I really like this aspect of like this well-traveled, like kind of jolly bearded, you know, guy. So I really that's probably one of my favorites at this point in time in my life.
John.
It's hard. I would say it depends on my mood. If I'm in the mood for something a little bit obnoxious, then K-Ice. But otherwise, probably Raven. I don't know. For some reason he kind of. I feel like I identify with him a little bit in some ways. So, yeah.
That's a good choice.
Okay.
So I would, for main characters, I would probably say Raoden, just because I like his story arc, like him getting Elantris together and like being able to do all of this, like, and figuring out all of the stuff that he is able to figure out. But for side characters, I really like K-Ice just because she's just so and just so like she's just funny.
She's a little shit is what she is.
She is a little
Yeah.
but see, the little shits are my favorites. Like, so I'm an elementary school teacher, and like the little shits are just so fun. Like they're so annoying, but they're so fun. Like I just love them. Like,
Think about just having K-Ice in your classroom, though.
Oh,
God.
jeez. Start cursing at you in whatever new
Three
language they
different
learn.
languages. I'm gonna just like make a little note on Raoden that I actually learned from a friend when he read Elantris, so we could talk about it. That I didn't know, but there's a statement from Brandon that is just like that Raoden is like one of his only king characters or like heir characters that didn't have to go through like a major transformation, because like when we look at, you know, Mistborn, right? you have Elend and the kind of transformation he has to go through to become like the king that's fit to rule and lead his people. And if you look at Raoden's character arc, his arc isn't a become more of a fit to become a king. He doesn't go through like these internal like, oh wow, I shouldn't be reading or I shouldn't treat these people like crap. It's like they all love him. He knows what to do. That's not his development arc. So I just kind of like wanted to throw that out there. That's something that I didn't learn until, I don't know, a year or two ago when my friend read it and kind of found that wob.
I can't. Okay, out of the main three, I'll say Hrathen is my favorite because the way that he has to approach his religion and kind of realize, is this right for me? There are aspects I like. I really connect with that, especially nowadays with the current religious system of my own faith. But I think out of the side characters, I don't know, there's just so many good ones. I love Sereni's entire family. Like, they're all so unique and fun. It's just, but Galadon's definitely. I love the pessimist that has hope. Like, that's always just such a fun dynamic to me.
Good answers.
Thank you.
I feel you learn a lot about somebody with that.
Well,
You know that at least 2 people in our group have big crises of faith. I'm just kidding.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I have
Joe,
a problem
is
with
there anything
hero
you would like to
worship.
add before we finish out?
Not really. I think everything's been covered. I don't really have any questions or all that.
Well, it's been great having you both. Thank you so much for joining us. You're allowed to stay in the channel. Feel free to come back if you want to show up at a later episode at any time. We're going to be doing the this is more so for Joe than Justin, but the Wind and Truth reactions. We're going to react to each part as an episode. You are free to join us and drop in for that, or slide them in the podcast notes thing, and we'll read them at some point. But that's going to just about cover it for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us in our Rams and Predictions. This has been Cosmere Connections, and we hope to see you next time. Bye.
Have a good night.
Adios.
I've always thought of an idea for a podcast that'd be weird, where like group of people, they read a book, but each of them just read one chapter, describe it, and that's how they get through it.
Oh, that would be so trippy.
Wait, describe it to each other?
And
Yeah,
put it all
so
the
like
pieces
I would read
together.
one chapter from Elantris, describe it, and somebody then would read chapter 2, describe it. So you're only actually reading like one every 4 or 5 chapters.
What the hell?
3
That would be
people,
great,
1 for...
except by the time you get to the Way of Kings, you guys are going to be in for a world of why.
It has to be just the viewpoint chapters.
yeah, I was gonna
like
say-
one person gets Raoden, one person gets Serene, one person
No,
gets
because that
Raven.
would make sense. Joe's idea would be horrible. That's why it would be funny to listen to.
I would feel so bad for the Hrathen person. Like, what happened with Hrathen? He yelled up at a wedding. I think.
Yeah, there's no more chapters
Justin,
with this
are you aware
character.
that we do... Another minute.
Oh yeah, another thing, when you guys were talking about Dash and how he wouldn't show back up, he's like a major character in Hope of Elantris.
Oh, is he really?
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
I only.
You can tell how familiar you are with Elantris just by that comment.
Yeah.
Like the fact that like he doesn't show up again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
listen
for
to
me,
the Mistborn one to
you know-
see like where our loyalties truly lie.
Yeah. I don't know why. I've always enjoyed Elantris. It wasn't the first Sanderson. First thing I read was Stormlight, but Elantris, I've always just held it in high regard for some reason.
Yeah, my first one. Half because of Wraithen. I thought it was great. So I was super invested.
See, I couldn't get into Elantris when I first read it. I was also in high school at the time when I first tried to read it, so that might be part of the reason why I couldn't get into it as much. It was too much politicking, and I was just like, oh, this is boring. So I didn't finish it the first time I read it, and then I had to go back and read the whole thing later.
Do you find
Still
that a
couldn't
lot of
finish it.
people that seem to not like the politicking piece has like, or is people that do have like a theme, like other books of Brandon's that are like not as action oriented or gripping? Like people seem to have like I feel like people either appreciate more of this like cerebral like political aspect or they don't. And if they do, then they enjoy Brandon, like they enjoy Elantris, they enjoy like the different and any of the other elements of the books that involve that. Or if they don't, then they don't like. And it seems to be it seems to be a trend that I like. I don't know. I've tried to watch for it. I don't have like any hard evidence, but it's just like watching people on Facebook that complain about Elantris. Then I go into the comments and see what other people don't like Elantris and what other books they say that they, or pieces of the books they don't like. It seems to trend that way. So
It's interesting to have so many books that you can have different subsets of fans within one writer's like body of work. That's fascinating. Where they just hate one thing but they love another thing so much.
Well, when you're that prolific, that kind of thing will start to happen.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason Well of Ascension is kind of considered one of the lower books because of the whole political aspect with Ellen.
Right. And I actually brought that up in one of our conversations in Well of Ascension is like it's just like people don't like it, and I'll be honest. When I was in high school and I read it, I wasn't into the political scene as much. Fantasy wise, I'm still not into the political scene. Non-fiction wise, but fiction wise, it's much more interesting to me. Now, but yeah, I think I feel like Well of Ascension is another like big one that people like. They like Well of Ascension. They seem to like Elantris.
I think for me, like the political aspect of it is kind of ubiquitous in a lot of Sanderson's books, but like this book seems to be more about Kai than it is about Elantris, and I don't mind the political maneuverings, but this like I was really really intrigued when I first started this book, and then a lot of it had to do with like saving this one city that's not Elantris. And that's cool. It's still a good story, but that was the one thing I think that threw me off. I was like, wow, I wouldn't mind this if it was more relevant to like the thing.
There are some of the political elements that just never come to a conclusion or come back up. Like that whole plan early on of Serene having all the lords have their people grow their own crops.
Mm-hmm.
That never has a conclusion at the end.
Set up for book 2.
Or he's just trying to be realistic, where political stuff starts to happen, goes nowhere, and everyone kind of forgets about it.
And then demon monks attack.
Well, yeah, of course. As often happens.
Okay.
I wouldn't count it out for 25.
Yeah. Dragon, just as a warning, Justin has only read Elantris, The Final Empire, and they're partially through Well of Ascension, so we're going to try to keep this just to Elantris. I don't think there's anything in this chapter set Stormlight Archive or Mistborn
Like I said,
related, so.
if you need to say something,
You
I'll just...
underestimate my power.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I'm like, I think we should do like maybe like a 2-part spoiler, like sorta like Mistborn spoilers,
No.
and then like just everything spoilers, because I'm like, I don't know if I can hold. There's like certain things I'm just like, I just want to.
Yeah, you know,
like, things are just gonna start flying out, and like.
See, you just need a safe word here where I'll know to just dive out for a second.
That could
But I
be
sincerely
arranged.
doubt there's anything in this chapter set that we're gonna be
Okay,
really
reader,
drawn
Reader,
upon.
again.
you say
You
that
have you say
every
that
time.
almost every time. You're like, we'll be done in 20 minutes. There's nothing
Well,
to
let's-
be said, and I will
let's
drag
try.
an hour-long argument over like one random point where we will involve at least 12 other books. Like,
Let's not have an
nothing
argument.
is safe here, man.
Okay.
Oh
I
God,
was
what's
thinking-
about to happen here? Jeez.
We don't know. That's the problem.
Just people disconnecting in hatred of each other by the end of this. You all
Well,
seem so friendly.
Let's see. Let's see. From what I usually listen to, Reader will say something, Kay will say he's wrong, he'll defend it, she'll prove that he's wrong, and then he will admit that he was wrong.
There are a
Wow.
few times where I was right.
2. His count is 2 out of all the podcasts.
I
He
think
is
it's
1.
like 3 or 4 by now with just Elantris. Elantris has like
Oh.
doubled
Hey,
my
there you
point
go.
total.
Oh,
He
whoa,
really has
whoa.
watched.
Yeah,
It's only 'cause
He
I
knows the
don't know.
he's
format.
rolling high now.
No.
Oh, that's why, because you don't know it as well. Okay.
Exactly.
I think all of us just read the books and come up with crazy theories during the week, and then we really try hard, convolute, like work them into this book that has nothing to do with where we are now.
Oh, that kind of
Uh-huh.
stuff. Good stuff. I see.
Exactly.
Oh, so what the current Song of Ice and Fire theories are.
Uh-huh.
They have nothing to go off, so their theories now are just random stuff.
That's a
Okay,
little bit like
let's-
the
Stuff like that.
Minnesota winter, where it's like I've heard of it, I haven't experienced it, but I'm not sure if I want to.
Oh boy.
And I will now
Okay.
prove how Sereni has a direct connection with Ruin. I'm just kidding. Okay.
Oh boy.
I literally was like halfway through the sentence and my brain started being like, wait, shoot, hold on, what can I actually say? I was like trying to say something outlandish and then I was like, wait, I can't say that. Wait, I can't say that. Wait, I can't say that.
That's when you just
Okay,
scream
this
cucumber,
word,
and
hold on.
I'll dive away.
Ruin. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Let me pick one of the gods from the Mistborn trilogy.
There was. Yes.
It sounds like we're gonna need to have a wider spoilers, at least discussion, if not a whole segment. So maybe if it comes to that, we can throw up. We'll
A
say
secondary spoiler.
just for you. We'll say okay, spoilers on, and I'll hold up this package of M&Ms until the spoilers are done.
I can just deafen him for.
No.
whatever it
I
is.
like the M&Ms. That's a good
Yeah.
one.
M&M's will be
Okay.
perfect.
And then you'll have a
I'll try to
visual.
hold- I'll try to hold my comments to the end so we can just kind of be like, we'll do each section with you, and then if we've got a lot of M&Ms to spill, at the end, we can just like, come up with something.
Yep. That sounds good.
He
No.
did say that packet of M&Ms. If he holds up a different one,
Yeah, exactly.
That's
So
right.
Remember, red peanut butter M&Ms.
Peanut butter M&Ms.
That's
Sounds
what
good.
the red
Sounds
package is. So
Yep.